Amy, and hello again, everyone. Good evening, and thanks for joining this session for World Affairs Council of Houston's trip to Indonesia in July of 2023. Behind me, you see beautiful island of Bali, a scene from one of the temples that we're going to visit, and we'll go over that in a short while. What I will do is, as we do always in these sessions, I will share my screen with you and just do my presentation, going over the itinerary, more or less in the same order that we will cover during our trip. And just as Amy mentioned, you can find the itinerary, the brochure for this trip on World Affairs Council of Houston website. You can go click on travel, upcoming trips menu, and you will see not only this trip, but all the other trips that we are planning for this year. So you can download the brochure there and check the details at your leisure. So let me share my screen with you, and let's go over the itinerary. Here it is, and I believe now you have my screen, the cover of our brochure, cover for this trip, Indonesia, Java, and Bali, from July 6 to 17, 12 days and 9 nights, because traveling there takes time. So just going there takes 2 days, coming back, well, another 2 days actually, but we don't count the second day over there. So 12 days altogether for the trip and 9 nights in Indonesia. This is July. It is the dry season. It's one of the best times to visit Indonesia. And the suggested flights, as you will see in the brochure, are on Turkish Airlines flying via Istanbul. So let's go over the region and the country. This is a big country, quite populous. It is an archipelago country, as we all know, made up of 17,000 islands, big and small. But of course, just there are big ones that we know, and we'll only be on two of the relatively bigger ones. So the main island here is Java. As the capital is Jakarta, is on Java, and there is Sumatra, and there is a Borneo, just southern part or the bigger part of Borneo. The northern part is Brunei Sultanate. It's a different country. And there is Sulawesi Island. And to the right, this map doesn't include that, but there is a part of Guinea. Papua New Guinea is an independent country on the eastern side of the island, and the western side is a part of Indonesia. And of course, there are other, smaller islands. It is located just, in between Indian Ocean and Indian Ocean to the south and west, and Pacific Ocean to the north and east. And to the north, Malaysia and Vietnam and Philippines, and to the south, Australia. And as I said, it is a big and populous country, about 275 million people. It is the most populous Islamic country. About 87% of the population is Muslim. And the total area, land area, is about 735,000 square miles, which is a little bit less than 3 times Texas. So it is big. And as I mentioned, dry season comes to between May and October. So we'll be there in July, just in the middle of the dry season. It is a big economy. It's one of the only Southeast Asian country, a part of the G20. And we will concentrate on the island of Java here in the middle. If I go just back, we will concentrate on this island and the small island of Bali to the east of Java. And again, let's go to the next map. Here, the island of Java will cover Jakarta and this Yogyakarta region, and then fly into Bali and spend 4 nights there. So flying into Jakarta, yes, it'll take about, just calendar days, 2 days. It will not take 48 hours, obviously, but it'll take 2 days to fly into Jakarta from Houston. And here is a panoramic view of the city. It has a population of about 11 million people. It has it has all high rises. It's the capital of the country, and the country. It was the Western people, Portuguese, first arrived there in 1512, and then Dutch and British starting from 17th century. And Dutch basically occupied this area, and the main island became a Dutch colony starting from a mid 17th century. Dutch East India Company was here, so Jakarta was the center of the Dutch East India Company. Let's see another view with the high rises. Now, there has always been a talk of changing the location of the capital from Jakarta to another place more inland, a more stable place. First, I have to mention that Indonesia is quite volcanic and prone to earthquakes, so it's quite active geologically. That is one thing. The second thing is Jakarta, the city, it's by the sea, and it is sinking. It is sinking, in the last 10 years, about 2.5 meters, which is about 7.5 to 8 feet, right? So there was a talk of changing the location of the capital city, moving it from this part of the country to a more stable area inland. There has been plans, urban planning and architectural plans and everything, but it never went through. But the talk is always there. So maybe, just in near future, they may try to do that. So Jakarta is the economic and cultural hub, I will say, but there are a bunch of other cultural hubs, and the main ones that we are going to visit especially. So in that sense, Jakarta may not take the first position, but it is the capital of the Republic of Indonesia nonetheless. Indonesia got its independence from the Dutch in 1945, but then Japanese came, invaded during the Second World War, and then got independence at the end of the war in 1949, became a republic. And here we see one of the central squares. This photo is taken on a no car day. There's a no car day to incentivize people to walk and bike and be more active rather than driving around and taking public transportation. So that's why we see people just all outside and walking. And as I said, it was colonized by the Dutch. This is what it looked like. Its name at the time was Batavia, and this is a view from 1780s. And this is the old harbor and a few canals. And Dutch were, of course, the master of canals, just because of how the Netherlands is laid out towards the ocean and below the sea level, right? So they were good engineers in establishing the city by the sea. And this old harbor we are going to visit too. From 1780s, when we come today, when we arrive, our first day, we are going to start our visits with the Chinatown, the Glorok neighborhood of Jakarta. Petak Sembilan Chinese Temple, the center of the Chinese community, of course, being a part of the Southeast Asia and having historical relations with the Chinese population mainland. There were traders and there were people who moved here from mainland China. So we will start our visits from the Chinatown and its local market, the Chinese market, which is quite vibrant. And in Jakarta, another location we are going to visit, which is quite interesting, is the Wayang Museum. Wayang, this is a traditional form of puppet theater. It originated in Java, so that is why, the central Java, Jakarta, they have a museum for that. And you may be familiar with the figures. There are different kinds of puppets, the three-dimensional ones, as we see here, and the two-dimensional puppet, shadow puppets that is displayed on screen and played by sticks tied to, all these joints. And this is the museum that we are going to visit and learn about this Wayang tradition and all these puppets. And then in Bali, we will actually see the show and see how it turns out, how they play, and see the tradition over there. And in our day in Jakarta, again, in the old city, we're going to visit Sunda Kelapa Harbor. This was the center of a 15th century kingdom, Pajajaran kingdom, and they were Trace people, of course, and we see the traditional boats here. Of course, now they are made of more durable material. In the past, they were all wooden boats, either used for fishing or for trades, just for freight, for carrying stuff in between islands and to the mainland. So merchant ships, in a sense. So we are going to visit this Sunda Kelapa harbor in the old town and learn about how the historically how trade went and how these ships are used today. And this is still the main harbor of Jakarta, and most of the maritime trade goes through this harbor. And on our next day in Jakarta, now we are going to visit the Istiqlal Mosque. Now, being the most populous Islamic state, Islamic country in the world, well, just of course, they have mosques. During our trip, though, and of course, and culturally, as a state policy, I should say, they emphasize, of course, the unity of different cultures that make up the country. It's not just, although the majority is Islam, there are Buddhists and there's Hindu population. As I mentioned, 87% of the population claims to be Muslim, and there are about Christians about 11%, and Hindu population is 2%, which is mostly concentrated on the island of Bali, and a very small population of Buddhists also exist in Indonesia. So this mosque, Istiqlal Mosque, this is one of the biggest mosques in the world, and as far as its capacity is concerned, it can accommodate about 200,000 people in prayer times. I don't know whether they actually, that actually happened. I don't know whether 200,000 people really came together for prayer here. It is quite, modern architecture, built in 1978, and this is the courtyard. So we will visit the mosque and learn about Islam in Indonesia. Although I have to mention that Islam, Islam started, as we know, in Saudi Arabia by, what's that, 8th century, 9th century, and expanded east and west. And by the time it was accepted here on these islands, it was about 13th century. 13th, 14th centuries, brought by the Muslim merchants, Arab merchants, basically, from through the sea route, coming from Red Sea and from Arabian Peninsula, today's Yemen, and through India to the island of Sumatra, and from there to Java. So that is the route that Islam followed. And so, in a sense, when compared to Hinduism and Buddhism, Islam is much more recent here in Indonesia. And we mentioned the Christian population. Now, this is the main cathedral. It's a Catholic cathedral. Now, this is from 1901, although originally, just churches were built during the Dutch colony period. But we have to remember that Dutch were Protestant. And during the initial colonization period, they didn't allow Catholic churches to be erected. So there were no Catholic churches. So how did this happen? And this is an interesting part of history to see how European politics showed itself, or European political developments showed itself in the colonies. Well, Napoleonic Wars at the beginning of 19th century, since at that time, France and Napoleon fought against the Dutch. At the end of one of the victories, there was an agreement that Catholic churches would be allowed in Dutch colonies. So after that, the Catholic Church, this was constructed. The construction started after the Napoleonic Wars, under French influence, under French domination somewhat. And in 1901, the construction ended. So still, it's the main Catholic cathedral in Jakarta. And the other interesting place we're going to visit in Jakarta is the National Museum, an interesting building in the first place, and it brings together all the artifacts that were excavated and found in various parts of the country on various islands. So from Chinese ceramics to the beginning of civilization on the islands, there are all different artifacts brought together in this museum, which we are going to visit. After a day and a half in Jakarta, in the capital, we will fly from Jakarta to the special region of Yogyakarta. Special region, and of course, the capital of the special region of Yogyakarta is Yogyakarta. Now, this is a special region for a reason. The town itself is not that big. It's about 370,000 people. And this is the only Indonesian city ruled by monarchy still today, currently. So there is a Sultanate of Yogyakarta, and we're going to visit the palace of the Sultan. And here is another view. So just rickshaws and horse-drawn carriages, and it is really here a lively, street view with motorbikes and again, horse-drawn carriages and everything. It's a lively city. It is the center, considered to be the cultural center of Javanese art. And Javanese culture, an important center. And why is it called that way? We are going to see. As I mentioned, there is this Sultanate of Yogyakarta since 1755. And this is the palace of the Sultan of Yogyakarta, still living here in this palace, but it is partly open to visitors to come and see. Now, how did this happen? How is there a Republic of Indonesia, and within the Indonesian Republic, there is this special region with an independent sultanate? That is the time of the independence. At the time, during 1945, Japanese invasion, and then 1949, fighting against the Dutch. Even before that, the nationalist cadre, the nationalist party at the time, found their alliance in this Yogyakarta Sultanate. And the Sultan himself was against the Dutch occupation, and he formed an alliance with the nationalist party, with them. just he gave support, and at some point, actually, Yogyakarta was a temporary capital of the country. And so because of this alliance, because of their support in the nationalist movement of independence, after the independence, this region was given a special, what is that, part, and the Sultanate was preserved. And today the Sultan of Yogyakarta still rules as the governor of the region. So we enter the palace. This is the courtyard. There are various pavilions that historically various sultans, starting from 1755, lived and used for various purposes. So this is one of the pavilions, for example, that we are going to visit, and just gold inlaid ceilings and various other artifacts starting from 18th century onwards, that we are going to see. And this is a statue of a palace guard, for example, and there really are palace guards here. They are palace guards, you see, with their guns and everything, and with the flag of the Sultanate and the symbol of the Sultanate on top of this here. And another scene, another, view with other people and guards. So in Yogyakarta, in the city, we are going to visit the Sultan's palace, and the other place we are going to visit will be the Royal Gardens. Royal Gardens, Taman Sari Water Castle. This is the entrance to the Royal Gardens of the Sultan of Yogyakarta. And it's called Water Castle because it's a big complex with a bathing complex in the center that we see, and a pool, a workshop, meditation center, and for resting. So this was a kind of a pleasure and pleasure garden for the Sultan, and we are going to visit. And one of the highlights just outside the town will be Prambanan Temple. It's a 9th century Hindu temple, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is made up of 240 temple structures. So it's a big temple complex that we're going to visit just outside Yogyakarta. And in the evening, we are going to attend a theater, a ballet dance show, Trimurti Theater, Ramayana ballet dance show. Ramayana is one of the Hindu holy texts that gives various stories of the origin of the universe, origin of everything, how gods became and how their relations happened and everything. So there are all different stories depicted or given in the book of Ramayana, and in this ballet dance show, partly those stories are depicted, accompanied by music, by gamelan music. Just we are going to visit this show on in one of the nights that we are going to be in Yogyakarta. And the highlights, and this is another view from the show, and the highlight of the country and highlight of the visit is Borobudur. This is a Buddhist temple. Now the previous one was a Hindu temple, and this is a Buddhist temple, again from 9th century. This is the world's largest Buddhist temple complex. This is about 30-40 minutes drive from Yogyakarta. We'll drive out there, and it's all tropical vegetation surrounded by fields and tropical vegetation. So we are going to visit this temple. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and learn about the Buddhist history of the region and how this temple came to be in 9th century AD. As I mentioned, this is, just being the biggest, world's largest Buddhist temple is one of the highlights of the country. And from there, we will visit a local village to see the local village life with the agriculture, with the way of living over there. We will take a carriage ride in the village and socialize with the villagers. So it's going to be a nice end of the day coming back to Yogyakarta. And that'll be our 2 days in Yogyakarta. And from there, we will fly all the way to the center of the island of Bali. And Denpasar is one of the main cities, but will be in the center in the city of Ubud. So in Bali, here is Ubud. And we'll fly into the town, check into our hotel. This is a view from one of the main streets. The downtown of Ubud is not that big, but it is quite interesting. Again, all green and traditional houses around, and cafes and restaurants and small shops. Of course, it is a tourism center on the one hand. And when we talk about Bali, we always think about Bali as an independent entity other than Indonesia. Indonesia is a separate place and Bali is a separate place. It's a part of course, administratively a part of Indonesia, but culturally it is quite different. I mentioned at the very beginning that most of the Hindu population of the country live on the island of Bali. So about more than 80% of the population on Bali is Hindu. So we will settle in, check into our hotel, and then in the evening we will attend a dance performance, a Kecak fire dance performance. This is a dance performance that started in 1930s, which brought together the traditional dances in the countryside, in the villages, and they just brought them together. And this is also a Ramayana monkey chanting dance. It is called at the same time, and Kecak name also comes from the monkey chak-chaks, the sound that monkeys we'll see the monkeys in a short while that they produce. So we will attend this dance show. It is called again fire dance for a reason. It is in the evening, and we will spend the evening there just watching this dance performance and ceremony on the other hand. So this is the start of our day in Bali. And the next morning, we will start our program visiting one of the attractive waterfalls in the Kamanu village outside the town. And then we will visit a workshop, a traditional workshop. Now, Bali is known for its fabrics, for batik, that is tie-dye fabrics. So we will visit the workshop and see how these tie-dye fabrics are made, how they are colored, how these different designs are produced, and see all different examples of Balinese fabrics in and around the workshop. And another place we're going to visit will be another palace, Klungkung Palace from 17th century. This was the palace of the local ruler, and still the descendants of the local Rajas live in part of this palace. They don't have their own, autonomy like the Yogyakarta Sultan, but they still, occupy the part of the palace. But the rest of the palace is open for visits to the public. And it's originally built in the second half of 17th century. It's partially destroyed by fire in 1908 during the Dutch colony period. But there are just, a significant part of the palace is still quite in quite good condition. And we are going to visit this Kulunggung Palace in or outside Ubud. And one of the highlights is the Besaki temple with the temple itself is, or temple complex, I should say, is quite interesting. This is also a Balinese Hindu temple. It is on the slope of Mount Agung. The site of the temple complex is interesting and quite beautiful in the first place. And in addition, it has very nice views of the ocean being on the slope of the mountain. So we are going to visit this temple complex. It's made up of 23 separate but related temples. And the location itself was a holy site starting from 2nd millennium BC. And various, temples of the time were erected at this place. But by the time Hinduism arrived in this part of the world, they started erecting the temples here, and gradually this temple complex came out to be. The structures we see will be mostly from the end of 13th century to 15th, beginning of 16th centuries. So this is a scene from one Hindu ceremony, and we are going to visit the Hindu temple complex, Besaki Temple Complex. And on our next day, we'll be more in nature. We will visit the Ubud monkey forests. And this is the entry to the monkey sanctuary. These are kind of tame, local long-tailed macaques. So about or more than 1,200 monkeys are in this sanctuary. So we are going to walk around and just socialize with the macaques, with the monkeys, and learn about this tradition. And on the same day, we will visit rice terraces. Rice cultivation is, of course, quite big in Indonesia. So rice cultivation actually, as far as known, there was rice cultivation. It goes back to 8th century BC, and all these terraces. Here is another view. So we will visit and learn about rice cultivation in the region. And of course, rice will be, almost in every meal it'll be served. It's one of the main staple dishes in the country, in the Indonesian kitchen. And our visits will continue. Now, I have to mention, of course, just this archipelago. This is located more or less just on or a little bit to the north or south of the equator. So it has tropical climate, and tropical forests and tropical vegetation is almost everywhere. And today, our visits will be in that vegetation. It will be quite interesting and nice views, and quite humid at the same time, although it is the dry season. So we'll visit a few other local temples, just walk around. And this is the Elephant Cave, again, what is that, Hindu structure that we are going to visit. And now gamelan music, that is the traditional music of Bali and of the region. It is mainly, it uses percussive instruments, as we see here. We are going to visit a workshop and see it, see a performance, a demonstration, and then we will have a very short lesson in these percussion instruments and try to play a piece Together here we see a gamelan ensemble. So this gamelan ensemble, they kind of um, play their music, accompany to almost all the dances and local dance performances, which also and also local puppet shows that we are going to see after this gamelan performance and gamelan workshop visit. So here in Jakarta, we visited the museum and learned about the wayangs and the traditional puppets. And here in Bali, we will see the show itself, the traditional Balinese and Indonesian puppet show. So we will also have some free time, some leisure time in Ubud in Bali, and our flight back on the final day also leaves in the evening. That also gives us an extra day during the daytime to spend either visiting other locations on the island or to spend some leisurely time in the town of Ubud. And from Ubud, we will fly back home. So that'll be the end of our trip, 12 days and 9 nights in Indonesia, covering mainly Java and Bali Islands. So now I will stop sharing my screen. And
say something, you have to hit the mute. It's wrong. You have to cross it, unmute it if you want to say anything.
So it's a very interesting trip. Indonesia is a country which is a little bit, underrepresented in travel world. So it is, although a big and important country, and as I mentioned, it's a member of G20. It's a big economy. It has natural resources. It has oil and gas. It has minerals. It's big in agriculture, and also a significant industry, car parts, textile, food industry. So it's an important member of the world community. But as far as travel is concerned, it is considered to be a little bit out of the way. So it is not very frequently visited. So this trip will give us an opportunity to visit this country. Of course, when I talk about Indonesia, I'm talking about Indonesia in general, not Bali. Bali is the popular center, and just people go there, and just that is for young people. It is a party center. For others, cultural travelers, it's a center of Hinduism and all these temples, and it has beautiful beaches. So Bali is considered to be a world in itself. But in our trip here, we tried to bring together the important cultural centers. Of course, there's more to see in Indonesia, which is not covered in this trip, like Borneo with its orangutans and its natural life, with Sulawesi, again, natural life, and Sumatra Island. So there's more to see, but we are concentrated our trip mostly on the cultural centers this time. Maybe in the future, we'll have another trip that covers the other islands and the natural beauties of this country. So I hope you will join this trip. And if you have any questions, now is the time. Please do. Sylvia, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm so fascinated with this Yogyakarta.
Yogyakarta, yeah.
Yeah, now there's a sultan
There's a sultan.
and
Yogyakarta, that's right.
And it operates as its own country, or is it under?
Well, no, actually, it's under Indonesia. It's a part of Indonesia. So the sultan acts as a governor with respect to the federal government. So it is a kind of a governor that is not elected or appointed, but goes by the family line,
Got it.
royal line. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it just the one area that he governs? Just that particular
Yeah,
city?
just that, yes, special administrative area of Yogyakarta. That's right.
Interesting.
Very,
Yes,
very
it is.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions?
Huh.
Joe, we can't hear you.
Now, Joe, that's a video, actually. She's not live over there. In any
Can
case,
you hear me, Elias?
hey,
Giselle?
Ellen, how are you?
Just fine. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Yeah,
I wanted to know,
yeah.
that it's Turkish Airlines that you fly
Yes.
over, but internally within the country and
Mm-hmm.
down to Bali, what's the transportation? What airline?
Well, yes, again, we will fly from there are two domestic flights from Jakarta to Yogyakarta, and from Yogyakarta to Bali. Two domestic flights which are not covered by Turkish Airlines, but they are included in the tour cost, and we will use one of the local airlines, most probably Garuda, the local Indonesian airline.
I see.
Mhm.
Ask him if he's been.
Fascinating.
Have you been on this trip before, Elias?
I have been to Indonesia, but I haven't been to all of these places that will be covered on this trip.
I see. Well, it's a very interesting place. There's a lot to
It
see.
is. It is indeed. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Now, if, as you know, just World Affairs Council trips have special meetings when we can we can make the arrangements, and if we have we have enough number of tour participants, then we may just spare some time, especially in Jakarta, for some meetings, either at a university or with a government official, just to get first-hand information about maybe foreign policies of the country or economy of the country. So those meetings will also be arranged as we get closer to the trip.
We
What's
work very, very closely with the Consul General here in Houston, and he has already expressed interest in helping us set up those meetings. Should we get a large enough group to go, he is. If you haven't had a chance to go to the Consulate General and get a chance, they have a wonderful museum there. The staff is amazing. The museum actually has some of those instruments that Ilias was showing us in the presentation. And Andre is the Consul General's name, and he is absolutely wonderful. He loves his country. He's very, very knowledgeable about it. And as I mentioned, he is very excited that we are going to Indonesia. So he has stepped up and said that he would help us arrange some of those special world affairs programming that we like to do when we get the larger groups together.
And Amy, this is Amalia Huckabee.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
How many people do you need in order for the trip to make?
Generally, we like between 8 and 10 before we start arranging those trips.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that special programming.
Special meetings. But for the trip, just be with 4 or 5 people, we can operate the trip. We can operate it as written in the brochure. But those special meetings may not be possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's the climate going to be like at that time of year?
Yes, it is the dry season, as I mentioned, but still it is hot. As I said, it is, just we are more or less on the equator, and you can expect lower 80s and higher 70s in the evening.
Okay.
Is it humid there?
And It will be humid, especially in Bali and outside the town when we walk around in the forests and then the countryside.
So hopefully a little cooler than Houston, though. We're all used to the humidity, hopefully we hope that it's a little cooler there.
Is it okay to wear shorts there?
Well, yes and no, depending on the location. In the cities, it is not the custom. So in Jakarta, for example, I wouldn't suggest that. But in the countryside, visiting, or walking to the monkey forest and that stuff, yeah, that is okay. But again, for practical reasons, I wouldn't suggest. Just for mosquitoes and bugs and everything, it's always a good idea to not to wear short sleeves or shorts, just to protect yourself.
Uh-huh.
Understood. All very good questions. Michael, do you have any questions for us?
Not right now.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you everyone for
Yes,
joining
thank you.
the session, and I hope we'll see you on the trip.
If you have
thank
any
you.
questions, if you have any questions, just email, give us a call. Ilias is available as well. So I hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you very
night,
much.
everyone.
Thanks. Good
Bye.
night. Goodbye.
Yes.